Welcome to our series of healthcare scene interviews where we sit down with top leaders in healthcare IT. I'm John Lynn, the founder of healthcarescene.com, a leading healthcare IT blog network. We have a network of 10 health IT blogs, the most famous being EMR and HIPAA.com, with EMR and EHR.com, and hospital EMR and EHR.com. Before we begin with our interview, I want to remind those watching live that we'll talk for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. So if anyone watching live wants to submit a question, they certainly can. All you have to do on the blab is do /Q and then add a space and then put your question. That will queue it up in the question box. We may try to incorporate it during the interview if it fits into the flow of what we're talking about, or we'll save it for what we call the after party. After the first 30 minutes, we'll ask those questions in the after party. Also, if you're watching live, you can click the tweet or post button on the left side, which will share it out with your Twitter followers. I'll do that now as well. So feel free to share that with them. Also, if you like what someone's saying, or maybe if you just like the person that's talking, feel free to click on their face, and that gives them what's called a prop. And so you can see the props go up. I'll do it right now. Give some props to our guest today. So feel free to do the props. All right, I think that's the basic logistics out of the way, but I'm excited to have a special guest here with us today. Helen Waters, the MEDITECH's Vice President of Sales and Marketing. Welcome, Helen.
Good afternoon, John. Good to be with you.
Good to have you. I've been looking forward to this for a long time because I don't know enough about MEDITECH, so I'm glad you can share some insights. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and about your work at MEDITECH?
Sure. So I've been with the company for 25 years, most of those years predominantly in the field, working in different organizational structures around the sales and marketing functions. I did spend 5-year hiatus, I'd call it, over on the operational side, running our 5X division, which is basically the support for our Magic and client server legacy customers. In that role, I was running the development, the implementation, and the service of those customers. Phenomenal experience, great way to see the company and understand the industry and the customer, honestly, from a very different perspective than being in the field. The blend of those two experiences really brought me back to run the sales and marketing division as of the winter of last year, 2014. So I've finished my first full year in that capacity, and it's been great to be back, and it's an exciting time in healthcare, and I'm looking forward to sharing our thoughts with you today. It
is an exciting time. Meaningful Use is coming to a close, and I think we're in a new era. As we
coming to a close.
Go ahead. Is it coming?
Is it coming to a close, right? The debate's still looming. It seems like it's heading that way.
It's at least changing, right? So I guess change could be good or bad. Maybe we'll talk about that. As I prepared for this interview, I think, a lot of people, when they look at the hospital EHR market, they kind of peg it as a 2-horse race often and say, oh, it's Epic and Cerner, right? And it's almost de facto, like they say, oh, that's just those two. I think that's inaccurate in many regards in the hospital EHR space, but what's your view from MEDITECH perspective? And maybe could you make the case for why MEDITECH's an important player in the space as well?
Oh, sure. Yeah, this is a conversation that I always enjoy having. I guess I'd begin by telling you that we see it obviously very differently. We have an enormous seat at this EHR table, and certainly in this market. We are a longstanding, strong legacy player in a market that we are still very passionate about and that we're deeply committed to. 26% of all U.S. hospitals utilize a MEDITECH system. We've been very busily expanding our offering to be sure that we're staying current with the needs of both our base and obviously the fast-paced move of the industry in the sense of developing new products, new solutions to address our facility needs. I think there's lots of different reasons for the growth or the perception that you just outlined relative to the two other players. But I would say we have never been more energetic and passionate about healthcare as we are today. And we very strongly feel well positioned. I think our customer base very much sees that. And our intent really through these kinds of interviews and the many other aspects you might be seeing more of us in are to illustrate and demonstrate that to the market, to bring upon us a good conversation about what makes a strong EHR, what constitutes a really strong partner in this industry. What does value mean relative to software solutions and outcomes, but also in terms of sustainability of the electronic health record? We feel good about having that conversation with both our customers and with many prospects. And I think a resounding level of confidence and wind in our sails a little bit with regard to where we see ourselves today and how well we are positioned really now to write, in essence, new chapters in our story, but also in that of the EHR market, which we think has been sleepy and ready and waiting for a new level of electronic health record in terms of usability. So we have some exciting new products, and we feel quite confident in our current market position, our ability to grow, and certainly our ability to really excel at raising the bar in the industry. And I think we can talk more as you go throughout your questions as to why I believe that.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, I think we're going to talk about, how are you working to raise that bar? I think it's an important subject. But, I think people don't realize how many customers MEDITECH has. I mean, can you give us an idea of like the scope? How big is MEDITECH? What's the install base? I mean, I don't know if you have them offhand, the numbers, but, give us a perspective on how many users or patients are using MEDITECH.
Sure. So I mentioned about 26% of all U.S. hospitals, in excess of 2,300 hospitals in the country use our software. What I think we're most proud about is the diversity of that customer base. I don't think it's lost on anyone in the industry that we grew up really at a very early stage in 1969, birthing this industry relative to the potential of what computer software could do to automate better processes in patient care. And we've been steadily growing that platform, obviously, from those early days to newer, more contemporary platforms and expanding the product footprint that we can offer. I think if you look at our customer base, we came out of a community hospital roots. We're proud of that. We think a lot of care in this nation is delivered in communities and not always just in big cities or at academic medical centers. We intentionally focused our company in that area. If you do the demographics, there's still many facilities out there that are looking to deliver high quality, cost-effective care locally. So about 23% of our base is really in the 100 beds and below range. We also have a percentage of the 200 to 300 bed market share. We're in about 37% of all those facilities, 26% of all hospitals 3 to 400 beds, and 17% of all hospitals that are 400 beds and above use a MEDITECH system. I think what surprises people about us is our size. We've for years been a little bit of an unsung hero in this industry. We've quietly gone about our business. We've done it well. We've built tremendously deep and loyal relationships with the customers. I think we built it with the market. We've been a good steward of the healthcare dollar. We've steadily grown and succeeded and provided high quality products that are clinically deep and sophisticated to facilities of all ranges and size. So what might surprise people is that we have a high number of integrated delivery systems that use our product and platforms. Our solutions have been incredibly scalable from facilities and IDNs that might range from 450 beds down to 25 beds. They're using a single instance of MEDITECH in a very flexible way, very scalable way. So we have a good, strong footprint. And our goal really is to obviously retain that footprint, to allow our base to grow and evolve with us, but also to grow as a company. A lot of change in the marketplace. This year in particular, in the last 18 months, we've seen behemoths leave the healthcare EHR space. I think that's there's lots you can read into that, but this is an industry that requires a strong level of commitment and I think passion, especially in terms of the complexities of the EHR market. We have both of those attributes, a ton of talent and energy, and our goal really is to continue to grow the company successfully. And I think there's strong evidence of our capacity to do that. So competitive market wins are what we're very hopeful of and going for, and the retention of our base without question. 2015, we had 95, we'll have 95 new deployments of our latest platform. We have an enormous surge of our customers who are moving forward with us. I think that we have a legacy in this industry that now spans over 3 different platforms, the Magic Base, client server, and our newest platform, which is a web-based electronic health record, and I'll talk about that when you're ready.
Yeah,
we're proud of our past, but we think we're executing well in the present. But really, right now, we want to talk about what we're delivering, which is on the future of healthcare and the future of new solutions that really take the usability factor where we think it needs to go. And we're doing that in a very unique and different way, and to our understanding, for the first time in this market, a full web browser-based mobile solution for physicians.
Nice. Well, I think we definitely want to get to that and where you're headed. I thought your comment was interesting about, having a passion for it. Like, if you can't have a passion for what we're doing in healthcare, then, you don't have a heart. It's just so important, right? But I think it's interesting. I mean, you pointed out to your legacy in healthcare. I mean, I looked it up, and at least the resource I found said you were founded in 1969, which, if my math is right, that's something like 47 years of history. Correct. Right? I mean, you've gone across 3 product lines, you said. How has that been beneficial? And, what are some of the challenges of having such a long history? And what are you doing to overcome them? I mean, because I think that's one of the perceptions that's a problem for MEDITECH, is that, they see the legacy and they say, well, that's a challenge, and, maybe they're not offering the solution. So what's your take on some of the challenges and how you're addressing them?
Yeah, so deep, rich, long-term history in an industry that we've really grown up in, and to a great extent, I think we've helped influence our legacy.
I hope so. 47 years. Right. Some EHRs don't last a year or two.
If you think about that, really, if you take a step back from that, and you think about all the changes in healthcare and all the changes in technology and all the transitions of economics in that timeline. Amazing story, right? You still have a very strong, viable, energetic business now transitioning to the next chapter. So I think for us, we've had strong platforms in the past. Magic is probably what we have been best known for. Mm-hmm. We're incredibly proud of the fact that we have customers using today a platform that was built over 38 years ago, which is an amazing instance of scalability and elasticity. But it's not the lens we want the market to see us through. We've been busily evolving into these newer contemporary platforms. And thus, we have been very loyal to our base. We've never sunset a system. We would not do that. It's against the core ethics of who we are from a value-based system. But we do encourage our customers to move forward to new versions of our platform. And that's the exciting part of what we're seeing, which is a fairly massive transition of our base into the future with us. A company that's been this successful at any point in juncture in its life cycle always has to stop, just as we do in every other part of our life, and realize, what's it going to take now to be successful for the market that we're in? What do our customers today need from us? What's the market demanding relative to solutions and agility? We've embraced a tremendous amount of change in the last 5 to 7 years that's probably quietly unknown to the market. We need to do a better job, honestly, telling our story. But we are clearly shedding layers that we need to. We're clearly retooled for the future. I think our base sees that. I think the market as a whole sees that. And we're actually well into the process of really executing on that, ensuring that we now are the MEDITECH of the next decades and beyond, not the MEDITECH that was founded in 1969, all of which is a tremendous foundation and platform upon which we proudly sit here today. But those success factors that help build our company, those products, that approach, not necessarily what we'll be bringing forward into the future relative to the needs of the market today, which is what we're focused on.
And I think that's going to be key. I think that's going to be key for the success of MEDITECH is, does the market see that change? So let's talk about those changes. So, let's talk about what you're doing in this regard, right? Because I think people care about what you've done and what you're doing, not about what you're saying, which I think we hear far too much of in the reverb chamber of EMR. So, when we started talking about doing this interview, it was suggested that MEDITECH wants to champion healthcare sustainability, and the strategies they proposed were kind of financial responsibility and then ongoing innovation. So maybe that's a good framework for the discussion. So, what are you guys doing around financial responsibility when it comes to EHR? And other tools.
Good question. I think the three adjectives we most often use to describe ourselves are around the concept of integration, which we really built out of our hospital-based platform, a truly integrated electronic medical record. Innovation, company has to continue to reinvent itself at every turn in order to remain relevant and competitive. And value we describe by the emphasis on both fiscal sustainability of the marketplace, but also the value that exists in the platform. I think there's a common misunderstanding that the industry really hasn't dug deep enough into, which is, if you pay more, are you getting more? Is it substantiated that the difference in cost is going to result in the difference in outcomes? We ourselves are asking this industry, commensurate with what CMS is asking of the nation, make this EHR space earn your healthcare dollar. Have us all be able to prove out the relative value and depth of clinical sophistication, analytic capability, interoperability, support of transitions of care, and the capacity to build a really integrated clinical network. Have us be able to prove the capacity of the system and then judge what the price point should be. So we're anxious to have a discussion about what we see as a rather high level of expenditure in EHR systems. And our contention is that we have a very deep, rich, robust clinical information system in addition to a complementary financial system. And we now have expanded that from our perspective well beyond the acute care hospital space into the ambulatory market. And I'll add the long-term care and home care space, creating a fully integrated record. And we're doing that at an affordable price point, both in one-time acquisition costs and also in ongoing operating costs. And cost in terms of relative numbers, and I think also staffing models to support it. So we believe that our call to action for our company is to take up the mantle of what the nation's trying to achieve, which is to reduce the cost of delivering care, to spend the healthcare dollar more wisely. And we think that applies to the EHR space. So we're anxious to have the debate with the industry about the relative comparative software solutions that are out there. Forget preconceived notions. Forget the fact that X number of facilities that are prestigious in name or perspective have bought a system. Be an informed, educated EHR healthcare consumer. We think we'll do quite well in that space.
What do you think the products are and features that do help lower those costs? What really sets you apart from other EHR in that regard?
So the ability to have integration, the ability to have actionable patient registries, the ability to have strong surveillance systems that imply and help clinicians have early warning detection about patient conditions, the ability to have patient engagement tools that keep your population of patients healthy and engaged in their care, informed about their care, the ability to connect with them through technology that exists obviously in the form of portals, but in the form of telehealth and e-visits. All the capacities that exist in modern day contemporary electronic health record systems we possess, that we advocate for. And I would say a very deep, robust clinical content capacity when you're implementing a system. So evidence-based content, out-of-the-box protocols, disease-driven protocols that are already tied together that build in for the outcome that we're looking for, which is higher quality, more cost-effective care. So the clinical depth matters and is differentiated for us. I believe very strongly and competitively against any other solutions that are out there. The ability to tie the patient care areas into one integrated electronic health record, which we're doing. So regardless of where the patient enters or exits the healthcare system, be it in an ambulatory clinic, an urgent care center, just for the first time through the emergency department, through a home care, a long-term care facility, we're tying together a single level of clinical record, allergies, problems. And I think it's causing a tremendous ripple effect of strong clinical outcomes in the back end. And that's what we're spending more time talking about, is the results our customers are achieving.
Interesting. It's interesting you've brought up integration a couple times as a key point for you. As I look at MEDITECH in the history, I think over the past few years, and I've been doing it for 10 years, so maybe it was the first 5 years of it. There were a number of deals probably lost for MEDITECH because of lack of integration in the ambulatory side. Do you think you were a little slow in that? It seems like you're trying to make up for it now, but.
Well, I think that we did a couple of things, and I'm glad you brought up ambulatory. We came out of this from our history, as I mentioned, from the hospital side. And clearly the landscape was shifting, and meaningful use and healthcare reform accelerated that shift to ambulatory. We had purchased, and previous to purchasing, we had been strongly affiliated in LSS Data Systems, which was a small medical practice management provider of software that was integrated with the MEDITECH system. About 4 years ago, when we completed the acquisition fully of that company, which was written in our technology, and the partnership, as I mentioned, was very deep. It wasn't an off-the-shelf acquisition. It was one that we had a relationship with for over 15 to 20 years. We realized that the ambulatory space would continue to grow in significance. And what I love about what we did, which was rather brave and courageous at the time, we had a fork in the road. We need to decide, do we take this LSS system and do we enhance it and make it better and build it more deeply into MEDITECH? Or do we hit a pause button and go back to our roots of realizing that this industry now is calling for more in the form of the usability factor? We could see that based on where meaningful use was headed, based on provider frustration, based on the lack of productivity physicians were experiencing. So we paused and said, we will do this better, deeper, and richer, and we will take our time to do it in a way that differentiates MEDITECH from the competitive landscape. So in essence, what we released in 2015 was a full web-based ambulatory system. And what I mean by that is a mobile application. All you need is a browser and a mobile device. And you have the ability as a physician to use technology in an electronic health record. And I should say as a nurse or an office individual, commensurate with many other things you do in your life. So you're tapping and swiping and no longer clicking and scrolling through what could be considered in the marketplace and has been touted clunky software. Vendors in the HR space have been adding on and trying to morph their systems to be better. But we knew we had a unique opportunity with the building of an ambulatory system to do it better and to raise the bar on usability and raise the bar on expectation. We looked at that and said, if it can be done with buying airline tickets and shopping on Amazon and reading newspapers, why not the EHR space? And why not us be the first ones to do it? So we've since released that product and have customers and actual physicians using it and are doing great. So that was a rather unique place. I think we saw the shift. We had the courage, I think, to take a little bit of a hiatus while we did it better and deeper, and I think richer than what we thought was out there.
And maybe we need a follow-up conversation with some of your product people. But do you think that shift towards better, more usable products is about mobile? Is about tablets? Is it about the swipe versus scroll and touch versus click? And or what's been your approach really to making the EHR more usable?
So our view on that is it is definitely about mobile. Clinicians are mobile users. For many years, we and other vendors have treated them like desktop workers by having keyboards and mice at desks that didn't allow them to be with their patient. It kind of was a barrier between the patient experience and the physician relationship building. We saw an opportunity to do that better. So we think mobility is incredibly important. We think there's a potential for, honestly, relative to existing EHR technologies, cost savings in the sense that you're really just using the browser and the mobile device. You're not connecting through expensive other solutions that sometimes help you get into those systems. We see an opportunity to build a stronger patient relationship through that capacity. We see speed without question. We've had one customer actually do a test of existing Windows utilization of an earlier version of an LSS platform to our existing new tablet version, and the time saving blew us away. Okay, if you were looking at an average list of 20 patients, and this customer of ours went side by side, new to older, and the time savings was 2.5 hours back a day to the physician, and it was a significant number of saves relative to clicks versus swipes. We think that this technology and user interface, which is browser-based, is commensurate with everything else we do in our lives. So it's a natural way to get folks acclimated to a new level of usability in the EHR space, which will save time, make physicians more productive, and be comfortable for them given where we are as a country and the world in terms of the UI.
That's interesting. I think it was yesterday or the day before I wrote an article that maybe we need the Siri of EHR. So we went from clicks and typing to swipes and taps, and maybe next is Siri, right?
Right.
Document the EHR.
And already so much voice in healthcare with so much more opportunity there. We see a tremendous potential, and obviously take advantage of voice with nuance and some other products already, which makes physicians quite happy given the progress of that technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll see a leap forward even again. So, I mean, that's some of the innovations that you've done. I mean, you kind of what other ongoing innovations do you think are, I guess maybe let's phrase it this way. What are you doing with like your best clients, right? Like what are they pushing you to do and what are they implementing?
Yep. So our best and strongest clients, and there's so many of them, by the way, we often think and acknowledge publicly, we would not be where we are without our customers. They've been good guidance and good partners to us, always pushing forward. So we're getting together with them through so many different venues. So the connection there is very strong. We see them pushing and wanting strong solutions relative to interoperability. We have committed ourselves several years back to the importance of that. I think one thing we chat about often internally is that we are consumers of healthcare in addition to being in the industry. The data belongs to the patient. They have the right to request and have access to it. So we've committed ourselves to a tremendous amount of innovation around the interoperability space in the form of our work with the Argonaut Fire standard that's emerging, in the form of our work with Commonwealth. We've certainly been doing a lot relative to better, tighter partnership with content vendors. I would say that we have completely turned our strategy around into realizing that if we can work with content vendors to use the workflows and the sophistication of our tool sets with strong content, we can get our customers up and running faster and with more predictable outcomes, which is what they want. There's a constant flow of change continuing to hit the industry relative to this shift from volume-based payment to value. Everything from the bundle payments that are emerging to the alternative payment models to the merit-based incentive models. So our customers are pushing for us to be proactive in delivering solutions that will be well adjusting to those changes that they're dealing with every day. I think the Population Health Initiative is one that we're also very deep into and in constant conversation and monitoring in the market. We have customers that are involved in the ACO world. We've built strong analytics tools to enable them. We've built very actionable patient registries so at any given moment's notice, our customers that are physicians or health coaches can find all their diabetics in a given geography, identify who has had certain tests done within a certain window of time, what those test results are, if they're indicating any kind of a potential problem or red flag, engage with that patient and be sure that we get them in or we can connect through an e-visit to talk to them. We've done a ton with personal generated health data to make sure in this concept of wellness, which the nation's shifting to and consumers are shifting to, we can generate information that's coming off of Jawbones and Fitbits and electronic monitoring devices that are in the home, get those into the record so that the clinician most appropriate to see that can engage and continue to talk with the patient. So lots of innovation happening at lots of levels. I think we see a lot of opportunity and potential relative to the cloud and the ability to become an efficient player in terms of healthcare providers wanting at times to be less and less operators of big computer rooms and networks and all of those things and providing EHRs through modern options through cloud-based solutions. So we have lots of irons in the fire. In addition to that, we're constantly developing new software. So we are taking our web-based ambulatory concept and we are moving that clearly into the acute and the ED space. So we intend to shift the paradigm in general for physicians practicing in healthcare. And the response has been phenomenally positive. I'd say that's one of the biggest things we're excited about is just really raising the level of expectations in our market about what an EHR should look like and what it can do, to not have it be so onerous, so intrusive, doesn't require 7 hours of training every 4 months, something you can pick up and use and walk and work with within a matter of minutes.
That's nice. You brought up so many topics. I think we could go for about 6 hours, but
I know, and I'm sorry about that. You rein me in when you need to.
no, it's we'll just have to have you back. But you brought up an interesting point about integration with content partners, and I think it's actually true in the respect of the Fitbit integrations and those type of fitness tracker integrations.
Right.
What's been your approach to APIs? I mean, of course, you talked a little bit about Fire, which kind of is an API, but it's not a full API for developers to really develop the things they want. I've long argued that the EHR can't provide everything, and if the people argue with me, I say, well, they're not going to do genomics, so you have to create an API once we start entering that world, right? What's been your approach, to APIs and really integrating with third parties?
Yeah, interesting. By the way, just before I forget, that genomics and precision medicine are topics that we're spending a lot of time and attention on, both relative to research and development. We have some customers that are progressive users in both of those categories, looking for better integration in the EMR and the EHR for access to information and genetic markers and things like that. But that will be another conversation for another time. Yeah, I think that we have a commitment to the fact that the healthcare environment is a big ecosystem, right? That the digital world out there and our movement into being a fully web-based platform. And I'll distinguish again that for us, that means a fully web-based platform. This isn't an extraction layer on top of existing platforms. This is an ecosystem that is web-based, mobile-based, and browser-based fully. We are in the process of evaluating the other requirements from an API point of view. We definitely have efforts and folks dedicated to looking at all of that. We love healthcare and we love software, and our goal is to help enhance and progress it forward. And certainly with all the discussion around interoperability and openness, and by the way, the pace of innovation that's happening outside of the world that we're involved in, it's so much bigger, so much broader, that I think you'll continue to see and hear a lot more from us on APIs moving into the future, and that's already R&D-wise being worked on and looked at.
See, I look forward to it. I mean, I talked to one of your friends, Eric, I guess competitors, or you can friendly competitors. I was talking to Judy, and I said, do you know the opportunity you sit on? If you set the platform and said, here's how you can access our data, and here's how you can integrate with us, everyone would conform to it, and we'd have a standard. And I think that the same is true for Cerner. I'd tell Neil the same thing. I think the same is true for MEDITECH. I mean, these large EHR systems, if you just provide an avenue, any avenue, good, bad, otherwise, they'll conform to it, and we'll essentially have a standard with at least a large portion of it. So, like you said, it's a topic for another conversation. I'd love to dig in, and because I think a lot, based on the APIs that exist, I don't think healthcare understands what's possible with a true API that exposes all of the data so that the users can really be creative with it. So anyway, a topic for another discussion. But I also wanted to hit back on something else you said about interoperability. Obviously, it's been slow to happen. And I've argued that it's because the customers never asked for it. And in fact, many customers probably didn't want it because it was to their financial advantage to not be interoperable. And so if you had done it, they would be like, wait, so you just created a feature that's going to make me lose money, right? Like, that's not a good business model, right? And so, but I think the tide has shifted, So I mean, you talked about the I think Argonaut project you're part of, right? What's been your approach to interoperability, and where do you see that going now that I think there's a shift? And maybe you could comment on whether you think there's a shift or not as well.
Oh, there is definitively a shift, and that shift is coming, I think, together by a number of forces. Obviously, meaningful use, and the government as a whole has got its attention focused on interoperability. I think consumers of healthcare who are growing in their knowledge and their wisdom and their experience will demand better interoperability from their healthcare providers. And I think as a vendor community, we've come together to realize that at the end of the day, this is about patient care and delivering the right care at the right time. And we need to commit ourselves to enabling that, right? So I think relative to interoperability, we have interfaced to many vendors over many years. We are currently in exchanging CCDs on a regular basis through discharges and ED, in particular, over 30 million. We have lots of transactions happening. We believe in the ability to be able to freely exchange. We think that the market's going to demand it. We believe that our efforts with FHIR and with Commonwealth, and some of our efforts beyond that to be, as I mentioned, on the web, part of a larger digital ecosystem with more openness and API capacity, is going to really take the industry and the patient data where it needs to go. You accurately described the fact that was not always the model for healthcare. In fact, it was as described, keep the patients here. Let's don't make it all that easy for everyone to go to the next town over or into a bigger city. But at the end of the day, market forces always, I think, win. And in that sense, the consumer-based nature of it, and the fact that we need to become more efficient. We need to remove the duplication, the redundancy in healthcare. We have been asked to do that. Now we're practically pretty much legislated, mandated to do it by virtue of all that you see coming out of CMS and even some of the payers to try to get to more efficiency and the reduction of cost. That it's a trend that's going to stick, and it's a good one for the ultimate patient at the end of all that, or the consumer of healthcare. So we're all in, and we're committed, and we think it's the right thing to be doing.
Interesting. Well, I have like a zillion more topics that we could talk about. I want to talk about EHR dissatisfaction and changing reimbursement, patient engagement, population health. I think we only mentioned meaningful use twice, so that's a new bar. That's good, right. I think. So
those other topics are so important too. I agree.
Yeah, and maybe we'll cover some in the after party, but I want to wrap it up for those watching the recorded version. I want to thank Helen for joining me. She's the MEDITECH's Vice President of Sales and Marketing. Thanks so much for sharing your insights, and it sounds like we're going to have you back.
Well, pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for giving us the opportunity.